it's Nina. Thanks so much for joining me today. Today I'm very excited because I'm going to be sharing a bunch of foiling techniques with you. Foiling is a really fun technique where you can add beautiful foiled elements to your projects, and there are so many ways that you can do this, and I'm really excited to be sharing 5 of them with you today in this video. So first, before we get started on the foiling techniques, I want to show you the laminator that I'm using for the foiling techniques. Now, there are foiling machines specially made for foiling. I'm using a laminator. A laminator works perfectly fine. So if you have a laminator, you can definitely use that. So you can see here my laminator is pretty simple. It's got a button on the side to turn it on. I can do hot or cold laminating, and you can send your paper right through the machine. Machines that are made special for foiling come with a variety of different settings, temperatures, and so on. But you can do all of the techniques that we're doing today in this video using a laminator just like mine. So my first technique I want to share features the Foil Mates toner sheets. These are pre-printed sheets that are 5.5 by 8.5 inch, which means you can get 2 A2 size cards out of one piece of paper. So you can see here I'm cutting it at 4 1/4, and I now have 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch sheets of paper. These work special with foiling techniques, so you can add foil to the front side of these Foil Mates sheets, and you can run them through your laminator or foiling machine and get a beautiful foiled design because it's already pre-printed with toner ink onto the paper. So I'm going to go ahead and run this through my machine with these beautiful little iridescent stars. Once I've let it cool a second, I'll go ahead and remove the foil off of the paper, and you can see the gorgeous result that we're left with. That toner, the black stars, now have foil on them. So it creates this beautiful foiled effect that is so cool. There's stripes included in the pack that I have, so I'm going to go ahead and take those stripes and show you how you can add ink first to the paper so that you can get a colored effect. I'm going to go ahead and buff off any of that extra ink because this is glossy paper, so it's not going to dry quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and buff off the excess, and then I'll go ahead and take my heat gun and heat set this. That way none of the foil is going to stick to any of the ink. The ink is still a little bit wet, so I don't want to have any areas of wet ink that's going to attract any foil. After that's dry, I'll go ahead and put this into my carrier sheet. Carrier sheets can be made from printer paper, parchment paper, or other types of transfer papers. So basically something thin that will go through the laminator and can stand up to heat. I run that piece of paper through my laminator with the gold foil, and I'm going to let it cool a second. I'll wave it in the air, and then I'll be able to remove the foil, and you can see the beautiful pink and gold results that we have here. Really, really fun paper to be able to use and create different card designs. I really like that I can add ink to these papers and give myself really beautiful custom looks. ThermoWeb also has these really cool peel and stick toner sheets. So these are full 8.5 by 11 inch sheets of toner paper that you can die cut or make it a full A2 size card or whatever size card you're creating. You can cover this paper with foil and create beautiful foiled elements. So I've die cut it from a bunch of different die cuts. I've used these beautiful stars from Simon Says Stamp, and I had a piece of this beautiful gold kind of with these rainbow iridescent colors mixed in. It's really beautiful, and it was a scrap. I'm like, oh, I want to make sure I can use up this scrap, and I'm going to make it work on this die. It's just big enough. So I'm going to go ahead and put this onto my die and run it through my laminator. After I've run it through my laminator, you can see that that toner paper now is covered with this beautiful gold foil. And these toner sheets are really great for die cutting and create beautiful die cut foiled elements. I'm going to show you what I ended up doing with this die in a little bit here. I also cut the really cool Big Hugs die from Neat and Tangled from this gorgeous rainbow foil. I love this foil. It's my favorite. And I cut that one. You can see the great results. I love that the rainbow foil works so well with big elements like this. So I cut quite a few different pieces from toner paper and I foiled them so you can see the kind of different results that you can get with these toner sheets. Now if you don't have toner sheets, or if you don't even have a laminator, if you don't have any way to be able to add heat to paper to create foiled results, you can foil with a double-sided adhesive. Strong double-sided adhesive can handle the foil. Those stripes that you see on the left-hand side, I created those with some strips of adhesive. And here I'm taking a piece of white cardstock and adding some double-sided adhesive sheets to the back side of it. Now, the trick with die cutting a sheet of adhesive like this is that you want to die cut from the back side. So you want the adhesive to be the front of the die and the back side to be the cardstock, because otherwise, especially when you're cutting words, if you die cut it the other way around, you will then have the adhesive on the back side, and so when you go to foil, your word will be backwards, so it won't work. So I ended up die cutting this flower heart as an example, and I'm trimming it out with some scissors to create a full heart. I have some rainbow foil here. I'm going to turn it over to the back side, and I will remove the adhesive backing from that die cut. Once I've removed the backing, that's going to allow me to stick this onto the back side of the foil, and that will be able to then transfer onto our double-sided adhesive sheet that we have attached to this piece of white cardstock. So I'll lay that down, and then after I've pushed it down, I would like to burnish die cuts like this with a dry rag. So I get a soft cloth. You don't want anything that's going to kind of scratch at the foil. You want something nice and soft. And I gently go over the foil and kind of burnish it into the little nooks and crannies. So that way I make sure that it gets pressed down really, really good. Afterwards, I can go ahead and peel off that piece off of my foil, and you can see the great results that we get. This is a really great way to be able to do foiling if you don't have a laminator or any types of toner sheets. This is a great alternative and so much fun. This is one of my favorite ways to foil. Now my other favorite way to foil, these are my two favorites, is to use the awesome Deco Foil Transfer Gel. This is a newer product from ThermoWeb, and I love that you can go ahead and use this to create beautiful foiled results with stencils. So I stenciled this design from Simon Says stamp onto cardstock and then foiled it with pink. It looks so beautiful. Here I've got another one that I foiled using a neat and tangled stencil, and I'll show you how you add the transfer gel in a little bit here, but it takes a long time to dry, so I want to make sure I had some that were already ready to go so I could show you in the video here. So anyway, after I added the transfer gel and it dried, this is where I'm at the point where I'm able to start foiling with it. So I'm taking some of this beautiful silver foil paper, and I'm going to cut this down so it's a little bit larger than the area that I have for the transfer gel. I'm putting it into my carrier sheet, and then I will be able to slide this into my laminator and heat set it. Once I run that through, I made sure I turned my machine off. I always turn it off when I'm not using it because you want to make sure that you don't have that on all the time. So I turned my machine off, and now I'm going ahead and removing that foil off of my card, and look at the results. Isn't this so cool? It's dimensional too, which is really fun. So it's got a raised aspect off of this card. Now you'll notice that I do have a little bit of foil hanging off some of the areas. That's no problem. Just take that soft rag and kind of brush over it, and that kind of lifts off any of those little pieces that shouldn't be there. And so you get a nice, beautiful, clean impression. And again, this is my other favorite way of foiling. So using the double-sided adhesive and using the transfer gel. Those are my favorite. I absolutely love the results. So here's how I apply the Deco Foil transfer gel. So I take the transfer gel and a palette knife, and I spread this over top of a stencil that I've attached down onto my cardstock. I'm applying this just like I would texture paste or embossing paste, and just basically putting a very smooth coating of this transfer gel onto the paper. I don't like to make it super thick. I just like to have a nice thin coating. It's still got that dimension off of the stencil, but it's not going to be overly thick. I can add texture to this, so I decided I wanted to distress it a little bit. You could leave it, of course, as a nice smooth coating, but I decided to take a sponge brush and sponge over top of that transfer gel and basically create little texture lines in the gel. That's another great way to add interest to your foiling because you don't have to have it perfectly smooth. It can have some texture, it can have a little bit of distressing look. It looks cool when you do that. So after I removed the tape and the stencil, you can see the results that we have here. That needs to dry. After it dried, I foiled it with some of this beautiful watercolor foil from ThermoWeb, and the beautiful results are so cool, and you can see that texture looks awesome. It almost looks like I painted this foil onto the paper. It looks really cool. Now you can also use this transfer gel to stamp with. I'm using a sponge brush here to apply a thin layer of that transfer gel onto a cling rubber stamp. I'm being very careful with this because I don't want to have any gloppy areas where I'll end up having it kind of smoosh onto my paper and create globs. I want this to be fairly smooth. So I stamped that onto some paper, and I'm using a cream here so it's kind of hard to see it, but there is that transfer gel as a very, very thin coating on that paper. Now bear in mind you need to clean your stamps off really well after using this transfer gel, because just like embossing paste on a stencil, the transfer gel will mess up your stamp if you leave it sit there for too long. So I really clean it off really well. I add some water, and then I take a dry rag and really brush off that water and transfer gel, and it comes off clean. It's perfect. But just keep in mind that you'll want to clean that really well. Alright, so after I applied the transfer gel onto the stamp and stamped it down onto my paper, I'm laying that into some gold foil, and I'll put that into my carrier sheet and run it through my laminator. After I run it through the laminator, I'll go ahead and peel off the foil, and you can see the kind of sponged look that we have with this foil. It's not going to be perfectly smooth because we sponged it on. So keep that in mind. It's going to have a textured look, but it looks really cool, and I think it creates this fun distressed effect. Alright, so that's a few different ideas. Here, I also wanted to show you how I finished off some of these cards with the elements that we created in today's video. So here is the stars and how I added them onto some blue and purple cardstocks, and then added a silver foiled moon, which I created using double-sided adhesive and a die cut. So I die cut that moon from a piece of double-sided stick-it adhesive, and then added the foil on top. So it's a really great example of how you can use the foil and double-sided adhesive together to create cool elements. Here's the example with the big hugs in the rainbow, and I added that on top of that really cool kaleidoscope background. This card is just like loaded with interest and fun. I love this one. It's my favorite. So this is again a great example of how you can use the transfer gel, or you can use the toner sheets like I did for the words to create the beautiful foiled effects. And then here's another example of the foil on the stencil with the transfer gel. Beautiful background, and that really nice beautiful pink looks just so beautiful against the glittered sentiment. So I hope that today's ideas that I shared using techniques with foil and a bunch of ThermoWeb products, I hope they inspired you to try out foiling, whether you've tried it out before and you really like it. Maybe these were ideas that you hadn't thought of yet, or maybe you're new to foiling and want to kind of get into it, and maybe you don't even have a laminator, but you can still do foiling with double-sided adhesive and the transfer gel with your stencils. There are loads of options for foiling, and I hope that one of them or many of them will work for you in your card making, and that you will enjoy creating with these techniques as much as I have. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more inspiration. On screen, we have 2 videos that you might be interested in featuring some fun techniques. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you again very soon. Bye!